I'm attempting to do something that I've never done before. I'm going to build a website template for Showit. And hopefully not just any website template. Hopefully a template becomes the most downloaded free template on the Showit marketplace. Now, I've built plenty of websites before, but all of those websites have been for a specific person or for a specific business. A template is a different kind of thing, right? Like with a template, you've got to make something that can speak to a lot of different businesses, a lot of different personalities, but you don't want to make it so broad that it doesn't speak to anybody specifically. It's a very unique challenge that I actually have no experience doing. So I'm at a bit of a loss as to how to get started. To get some help, I turned to a Showit template veteran, Jen Olmstead from Tonic site shop. Jen's created templates that have been used by literally thousands of Showit users. So if anybody can point me in the right direction, it's her.
I think in general, I just love to get your insight on like how your approach is when you start with a blank canvas. Like, what are your steps in the process?
I think the thing that is interesting about where we like to start is we usually like to start with a person in mind. We look at our existing template collection, or we get a sense of what's available in the market, and we go, wait a second, who is not represented here? Do we have something for this particular person? And so for our last example, for our last template, we were like, hey, we want something that feels kind of editorial, but feels like the Cezanne French girl, or someone that shops at Jenny Kane, and maybe like color, which was new for us because we don't typically. And it was just this idea of like, okay, what would this person want? What would she like on her website? What kind of copy would resonate with her? What kind of products would she would buy? Because then we can kind of use that stuff in the copy. And we sourced a lot of inspiration from the brands that she would follow. So it was like, okay, let's look at Cezanne. Let's look at Jenny Kane. Let's look at Architectural Digest and the kind of magazines that she would read. And it's interesting how when you start with kind of this person in mind, it allows you to flesh out the template like you're designing it for a client. And that to me allows there to be so much more potential for people to go like, wow, this feels like it was really a custom design that was made for someone, that was made for me. And so I think it's been really interesting. And I think that has also helped us with so many decisions, because when you're designing a template, you could do anything. You don't have a client saying like, well, I need it to be this. So that can be honestly kind of frustrating when anything is possible, everything is possible, and everything is a bad idea, right? So we always try to find some sort of rubric through which to make decisions, because as our favorite Austin Kleon, Steal Like an Artist says, limitations bring freedom. So the more we can kind of limit the gamut of what's possible and what we can do, it allows us to be so much more creative. And so, it's like, okay, would this person like this stock image or this stock image better? Well, I can make that decision. I'm not just like, hell if I know, which of these fonts, like which, all of those decisions get so much easier when you have that person in your mind.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I think one of the challenges that I'm feeling as I kind of approach creating this free template for our app is how do I speak to the one person, but do it in a way that also speaks to a myriad of different people. So how is your approach in that? Or do you just say, I don't even care about the myriad, we just want to go after the one?
I think it's interesting because I think you have to look at which things are universal to these kinds of people. Okay. So I don't really want to like be so specific, like, if you like unicorns and daisies and your favorite magazine is Cherry Bomb, this template's for you. It's more like, what do these kinds of people have in common? And then how can I cast a slightly wider net with how that might look? Honestly, the more niche we've gotten with our templates, the less some of those have sold. When we were really just trying to reach such a very specific person, it wasn't universal enough because there wasn't a big enough audience for that template. So I think what we typically try to do is we try to figure out what are the commonalities of these kinds of people, and then how do we make the template universal enough that it could meet someone that's just outside of that description too. And I think that's where a lot of template designers actually struggle, because they do make it so specific that then people go like, well, I kind of like this, but it's not quite right. And it feels so specific that I don't know if I can change it enough. Sure. And so I think for us, we start looking at like images are a great way to like bring a vibe to the template, but we try to keep the actual design somewhat simple. So it's mostly like layouts and fonts. It's not a ton of design elements, because I think that's where the consumer gets bogged down and they're like, okay, I can't imagine this without all the arrows, but I don't like arrows. So what do I do?
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I think the question that pops in my head is we're talking about persona and, finding the things that these people like or don't like. How do you find that information? Is there like some secret website that tells you if you're looking for this type of person, here's their interests?
Oh, that's such a great question. Yeah, that is super big. So honestly, we typically think of a few real people we know that would buy the template that we're trying to create. Or we literally think, oh, we don't have a template for this person. We actually did this with our friend Abby Grace back in the day. She was a photographer. And we were like, hey, we have all these templates, but we don't have one that like Abby Grace would buy. So we thought about like, okay, who's Abby Grace? And then what are some other people kind of like Abby Grace? What is the style that they would be resonating with? What kind of music do they like? What kind of, fonts do they like? What would they gravitate towards? And then often we will actually send the template to those people and be like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, does this get you? Do you feel like this was made for me? And I always know we've won when they're like, oh my gosh, is this my new custom website?
Where do you go to find some of the inspiration for the actual website design element?
I mean, the biggest thing that I would say is we never source from within the industry. We almost never look at other templates unless we're trying to make sure that our templates are different enough from what's out there. And I think this is an area that can be so helpful as a template designer. It's really easy to feel like, am I just redesigning a version of the same thing that already exists? And you kind of see that where there's just a lot of replication, and it's hard to really make something that stands out. So I think the more you have blinders on to what's already existing, especially in the Showit marketplace, there's so many talented designers. So we always look outside the industry entirely. And so, there are a lot of amazing, I have like an app on my Chrome that is just like, I think it's called Panda, and it's just like beautiful website inspiration. We source from a lot of print. In our first templates, Jeff and I would just go to like a beautiful bookshop and go through magazines and just like screenshot photos, like do all of that. We look at tons of e-commerce, because my philosophy is like, these companies are paying designers so much money to constantly source the newest, trendiest designs built to convert. So that's probably a great place for me to look for stuff that's going to resonate with our clients and sell well and be strategic. So retailers, I think, are a great place. We also look in mailers that come in, so like newsletters that come from e-commerce. I think that really the key is just seeking to look outside the industry, because you don't want to create another version of what already exists. You want to create that kind of iconic work to your brand that's really going to make people be like, wow, I haven't seen anything else like this. And then the other thing that I think we're doing as designers is really we're being asked to be trend forecasters of like, okay, what is going to be important in web design next year that doesn't exist on the marketplace yet? And so the big thing that we've noticed in the past year is that scale has completely changed in the last couple of years when it comes to websites. Used to everything kind of was like in this space and was very much contained in a little horizontal space. And now websites are built to scroll. And it's not that you have to see every single thing at the same time. It's the customer is wanting an experience to scroll through and to browse. So everything is bigger. It's more pulled out. It's meant to be seen on a bigger screen, but then also to look great on mobile. And so those are the kind of things as designers, I think we're being asked to do and being trusted to do well by our customers and say like, hey, what should my website look like next year? Because I don't want to just switch out to a new template in 6 months.
Yeah. And I think with that, you can't just like sit down and go like, okay, what are the trends? You kind of have to constantly be looking and even like filing away different things that you're seeing, which is more of a lifestyle than it is like just a task on your to-do list.
Absolutely. And I know you're the same thing as me, where you're like constantly just looking and filing stuff away of like, oh, I could do that. Or wow, I love this one section. So we make an inspo folder for each of the sites. And I design all of our sites first in Illustrator. And so I dump everything from our inspo board that we pulled from Pinterest, from other websites, from books, whatever. I dump it all into my Instagram art board. And then we'll literally pull it up section by section and be like, ooh, that's right, we wanted something like this. Or wow, we really liked that one little underline treatment from this. And so I think the thing that ends up happening is that because we're pulling inspiration from so many places, we're never copying one thing and saying like, okay, well, we just want this website. Like we want a version of this website, which is the problem. But we end up with this really kind of original piece of artwork because we've curated it from so many different places. We've combined it into something new and fresh and original.
Yeah. And that's kind of the problem with copying is you're copying yesterday's trends, right? And so if you're wanting to move a trend forward,
you're treading ground.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of the thing that was good. And maybe it's good right now, but it was up and coming a couple years ago. And it's like, it won't be long before it's kind of in the dust and then you've got to do it again rather than like, hey, let's think 2 or 3 years down the line.
Yeah, I think this way you're doing a lot more work on the front end, but you have to do a lot less work to stay current, right? So you're not having to constantly design new stuff because your stuff feels dated. You're just having to work harder to design something well on the front end. And I think a lot of designers are shocked when I tell them how many hours we spend on each template. But it is just a truly astronomical amount of hours, like slaving over each little detail of like, should the button be this? Maybe it should be this. And my team gets mad at me because I'm like, no, it's not done. I'm sorry. Like it's not there yet. I need another week. But because of that, when we finally released it, it's like, okay, this is going to last. I know that a customer could have this for, 2 or 3 more years, maybe even more than that. We have templates. We have people that have had their Tonic websites for 10 years. And they're like, I get compliments on it all the time. So I do think there's this level where if you put more work in on the front end, that's going to pay off both for you and for your customer in the long run.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. And also pretty intimidating as I'm thinking about how many hours it's going to take me to do this template. So,
I mean, I would just say have fun with it. I think that is really what people are looking for when it comes to website design right now is an experience. And so I think if you can give them that, which you're so good at already, if you can give them that in a way that's easy for them to use and understand, that I think is so important. And then I think the other thing is that so many clients can't picture a template modified for their brand. So the more you can make it possible for them to see themselves in the finished template, I think that's where it is so helpful. Where they go like, oh, I can picture this, like this could work for me. That's ultimately what they're asking is like, could this really work for me? And so that's the question you're trying to solve and give them all the tools they need to make that decision.
I love Jen's idea of finding a gap in the marketplace and trying to fill it with a template. And thankfully, I work with somebody that can help me figure that out and also give me some tips on best practices.
Hey, JT, we are building a free design for the app. And I was wondering if you had any insight on like which templates in our store do the best and why.
Yeah, you bet. Let me pull up. I actually just recently updated a report.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the top 5 designs in the market so far this year. We can see we've got coaching in number 1 position, photography, fitness, and then a couple more photography sites as well. So
talk me through some of these because we won't necessarily pick these industries, but talk about like why these stand out and perform better.
Sure, I think they all kind of push, in a great modern design style, but they also have like great features that they've all implemented and stuff. So they all make sure like they've got the social grid widget in there so people can have social proof by having their Instagram feed on their design. They a lot of times include a pop-up because so many people are wanting to drive like newsletter growth. And so having a pop-up pre-designed ready for them to just put like an embed code for the newsletter form on there really helps a user out so they don't have to figure out how to make it pop up and all that stuff.
Yeah, so it's much more trying to make the template more turnkey so that somebody can come on, they can add their information and have a website within a few days.
Yeah, I mean plug and play. So the idea is that really everything's ready to roll. It's just you just need to put your touch on it. So you need to put your images in, your text, and then you can hit publish, and then you can keep iterating and changing over time, but it doesn't take a lot to launch a site.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm struggling with is the idea that you're building a template for a specific type of person, but it also needs to speak to a whole bunch of people. How have you seen that done well on the templates that we have?
Sure. I mean, I think it actually is helpful in that a template is actually sells best when it is targeted at a certain business. So having photography, having copywriting actually designed around specific customer profile and then applying it to a template really makes it stand out amongst others. And so it's not always best to design like one for too many businesses, but if you can design one that really hits what a certain type of business needs with specific features and pages and content, it'll really help it stand out and sell.
Yeah, talk a little bit about the copy, because I know you've mentioned before, like some templates that do really well don't just have the standard lorem ipsum.
Yeah, it's really hard for a customer to envision their website, like, or that as their website when there's lorem ipsum in there. But they can get a much better handle on it if they can see like headlines and text that actually connects with their types of business. And so it's worth it to hire a copywriter or to spend some time writing copy that fits the customer profile and putting that into the template, just like you would have to do for a custom website build.
Sure.
And it really just makes it connect so much better.
Yeah.
Well worth it.
That's great. I know another thing that some of our users kind of struggle with is the connection between WordPress and Showit. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some best practices for setting up stuff on the WordPress end?
Sure. I mean, biggest thing is test. Making sure that when a customer gets the template, it's not going to accidentally be broken unexpectedly. So having post list, single post, and page templates designed, tested, make sure they work and ready to roll, so that really a customer doesn't actually have to make changes to the WordPress side, because it is the more complicated side of things. But if they can simply just change like a font for the title and maybe like colors if there's color elements and stuff, but they don't really have to feel like they have to actually set it up to work.
Sure. Yeah.
It's probably the biggest thing.
And when you say test, you mean like set it up and show it, but connect it to an actual blog where there's live posts and see how those posts are being populated.
Yeah, for all of our designers, we give them designer test blogs to be able to actually test out a design on WordPress to really see how it works with live WordPress content.
Yeah.
So that's probably one big thing. So a couple other things that we see across sites that really adds value is building out like maybe a shop page.
Okay.
So that it's ready to roll to put in like buy now buttons on a page. It's not fully integrated for e-commerce, but it's really ready for like someone to start doing e-commerce. Maybe they're wanting to sell one or two products.
Sure.
That really adds additional value. So someone doesn't feel like they have to go and figure out how to do that later.
Yeah.
It's ready to roll.
So maybe thinking future-wise for whoever this person is going to be, like maybe they don't have a shop today, but down the road they'd love to have like all of these types of things to just kind of plug it in. Because I know like when I'm buying something, that's the first thing that I ask is like, is this going to be helpful for me 5 years from now?
Definitely. Is it ready for you where you envision your business?
Right. Yeah, exactly. What about some specific stuff like, I don't know, the footer, the menu bar, the different things that maybe are like a last thought in a design?
Sure. Yeah, so we think about like customer flow. It's really important to think about how a customer goes from top to bottom on a website. And so if having navigation at the top, obviously important and standard, but having navigation on the bottom isn't always in place on some of the templates that I see. All these top performing ones have a footer navigation. So they have links so that when someone gets to the bottom of the website, they have an additional option of where to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can even put a separate canvas down there that really drives someone to go somewhere specific based on the page they're on. But at a minimum, having links in the footer is a big thing to do.
So it's almost like how you're setting up the content of the template is also educating the person who is going to be using the template on like how to build a website. And that's stuff that for folks that like you and I have been doing it forever, like it'd be like, well, sure, you just need a footer, like go put something in your footer.
Yeah.
But like for the average person, they're like, what's a footer? You know?
Yeah, they may forget to include these kinds of things if they were building from scratch. And that's why it's so important to have it really set up in a template ready to roll for them. One big thing that I would say that really adds a finishing touch to a website is to make sure to spend the time in actually putting layer animations. Yeah. So that as someone's scrolling down a website, they're actually seeing elements come in through the page, which is so much better than just a static page that could feel like a PDF.
Sure.
And you really don't want it to feel like a PDF. You want it to feel alive. And so those animations and spending the time to do that at the end of a design is really important.
Yeah. Do you have any insight on, like as far as where are the general Showit user base is going versus like the designs in our market and if there's like a gap between the type of user that we're attracting more and the templates that they would have to use.
Yeah, let me pull up. We do have a dashboard that we can look at new users. So here we can kind of see photography is still a huge category for us. Then we get into other more general services, professional service and other. But then we start to see health and wellness is definitely a growing category for us. That's one of the reasons we have a health and wellness category in the store. We have coaching, fitness category in there. Business life coach kind of fits that category, business coaching.
Sure.
And then the next major category that we're seeing is marketing and branding. So, which is kind of, business to business services.
Sure.
They're offering.
Social media marketing. Yeah, that's cool. And it looks like if we could lump like graphic design, marketing, branding, web design, because they're kind of real similar.
Yeah.
If we could put that into one category, that might be a good template to build for.
Definitely.
Because I don't think there's a lot of those templates on our store.
We don't have anything specific in the store or in the app.
Yeah.
So that's a great category to add in there for sure.
Cool. Any last thoughts on things I want to make sure I don't miss when I'm building this template?
I think the biggest thing is just keep in mind that our vision is that people have the ability to be creative with their website. And so designing a template is important to make sure that we give them the creative freedom to make changes. And so we're not putting too much fixed content that can't really change for a user.
Sure.
But we're setting them up for success for them to take their creative abilities and really build out the site to be perfect for them. So creative freedom, flexibility, ready, plug and play, ready to launch are probably the big things to keep in mind.
All right. I think I've got some really good direction. Jen mentioned that we need to find a specific persona that has a lot of demand, but doesn't necessarily have a lot of templates to choose from, and build something specifically for them. Then I was talking to JT, it looked like marketing and branding was specifically on the rise for the people that were signing up for Showit. And I know that we don't have a lot of templates for those types of folks. So I think this might be the perfect mixture of big demand with a little supply. So all that's left is to run it by James and then get moving forward. Hey, so we're working on this new free template. Then when I chatted with JT, we found that there is an increasing amount of folks who consider themselves marketers or branders. And we don't have a ton of templates for them specifically. So I feel like this might be kind of the best route to go down. But before we started working on stuff, I wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. The only thing that comes to mind is whether or not people in marketing and branding are the same, or are you going for people who specialize in branding versus people who specialize in marketing? And I know sometimes those terms are used interchangeably. I just don't know if designing for both of them will look the exact same. And so I think that's probably the one thing I would consider, which one comes first, branding or marketing, or are you more or less using them, kind of considering them the same? So
I think James is right. We've got to specify specifically what people mean when they say I am in marketing or branding, because they don't always mean the same thing. And we want to get this right, because this sets the pace for the rest of the project. Next steps are going to be digging a little bit deeper into what that could mean when somebody says, hey, I'm in marketing or I'm in branding, because it could mean a lot of different things. So that's our next step, but I think it's going to put us on the right path.